Just waiting on you, STL TV.
We are live. You may proceed.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Mayor Tashara Jones. I use the she, her pronouns, and welcome to the Stimulus Advisory Board meeting. Before we get started with your testimony, I just want to again give you some brief remarks. So thank you for joining us, and a special thank you to the thousands of St. Louisans who responded to our call for input. Nearly 1% of city residents shared their priorities for direct relief with my administration, and I look forward to hearing from the more than 100 individuals who've signed up to share their ideas with us today. I'm also deeply grateful to the Stimulus Advisory Board members, or SAB members, helping guide our city through this pivotal moment, and for the energy and insight which they brought to this work. The Data and Evaluation Group has analyzed over 2,500 survey responses in a wide range of different languages. The Process Working Group has driven a robust and inclusive community engagement effort, and the Direct Relief Working Group has drafted a compassionate and comprehensive initial stimulus package, which is designed to meet the critical needs of individuals, families, businesses, and neighborhoods across the city. Before diving deeper into the direct relief package, which the SAB is recommending, I want to zoom out for a second. As you know, St. Louis is at a crossroads. Deep racial inequities compounded by an unprecedented pandemic, an economic recession, and a wave of violence have pushed families across our city to the brink. The over $500 million coming to the city through the American Rescue Plan represents a lifeline, and we have a responsibility to seize this once in a generation opportunity to transform an intolerable and unsustainable status quo. I am committed to investing these funds in line with the community's priorities for maximum transformational impact. Just as we've intentionally invested in the Central Corridor for the last 50 years, we must use Recovery Act dollars to breathe new life into North St. Louis and parts of South St. Louis. We can use these funds to build affordable housing, expand public transit, renovate schools slated for closure, upgrade community and recreation centers, provide free public Wi-Fi, redesign our 911 dispatch system, transform the city's vacant land from a liability to an asset, invest in workforce development, and much more. The possibilities are endless, and I'll need your help in order to ensure that my administration's priorities reflect your needs. I'm committed to incorporating your ideas in order to make this a people's stimulus and a people's recovery. Process is policy, and I believe that bringing in diverse perspectives will help us make wise investments and build a diversified portfolio. At the end of the day, the truth is $500 million is too much money for the city to allocate alone, so we need your help. That's why I plan to allocate a portion of the funds through this participatory budgeting process. It's worth emphasizing that this is an advisory board, not a decision-making body. The city's budget power will continue to lie with the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. In the interest of clarity, the Stimulus Advisory Board has asked me to provide the public with an overview of the process through which the city spends money. The city allocates funds through the appropriations process. Money cannot be spent until the proposed expenditure has been approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, which is made up of myself, Comptroller Green, and Board President Lewis Reed. Once the Board of E&A has recommended the appropriation, it must also be approved by the Board of Aldermen. The city can't spend money until both the E&A and the Board of Aldermen have approved the use, and I look forward to working with my fellow elected officials in order to deliver direct relief to residents by July 1st. The deadline to approve the city's budget is the fastest way to deliver direct relief. If a city department plans to spend the funds on its own, it can proceed. Contracts with third parties are different, and will need to comply with local, state, and federal procurement requirements. Finally, before passing the mic to our moderator tonight, the Reverend Michelle Higgins, I want to remind us that all of this body's mandate to conduct research, build processes, and provide recommendations designed to ensure that the American Rescue Plan funds are invested equitably, in line with the community's priorities, and for maximum transformational impact. To be clear, and I know the members know this, but for the public, this is an advisory, not decision-making body. Once again, I am grateful for your engagement. Thank you for attending, and we're just getting started. Michelle?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Mayor Jones. Everyone, it is wonderful to have you here tonight. I want to give you some information around accessibility and figuring out how to make sure anyone who needs to see the sign language interpreters can make sure they are pinned to your screen. So if you need to see the interpreters this evening, please pin the video by clicking or tapping on these three dots on the top right of your box, and then you'll see that you need to go to the interpreters video. And once you click those three dots and you tap on those, you should be able to see them and pin them. If you need closed captions, then you should click or tap the closed caption icon that's there with the CC in the bottom right of your screen. And then you'll be able to select whether you want the full transcript or to see subtitles. Now, I'd like to introduce you to the co-chairs of the Stimulus Advisory Board, Wally Seward and Sandy Moore.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate that. Good evening. My name is Wally Seward. Yesterday, I was humbled to learn that I've been appointed by the mayor as one of two co-chairs of the Stimulus Advisory Board with Sandy Moore. This board is composed of so many outstanding individuals. I look forward to working alongside all of them. So you know a little bit about who I am. I'm a former professor of political ethics and the director of civic engagement and impact fellows for Focus St. Louis. I'm exceedingly proud to be able to call this city my home for over a decade now. I think St. Louis's potential is actually bigger than its problems, and that's saying a lot. And active local democracy is the only way we have to realize that potential. So thank you all for being here. It's an honor to play a small part in making that potential a reality. With that, please allow me to introduce my co-chair, Sandy Moore. Sandy?
Well, thank you, Wally. I'm not as good as Wally. Folks out there in the audience, I'm going to read from this piece of paper I've got in my hand. But it's easy for me to say good evening. And like Wally, I'm really honored to serve as the co-chair of the SAB. The talent, the commitment, and the passion of the members of this SAB for making sure that the stimulus funds are used to make St. Louis better is invigorating. It's tough, but it is really wonderful work. A little bit about me. I'm a lawyer by training and vocation. For the last 25 years, I've worked exclusively in comprehensive community development, neighborhood rebuilding, community development financing, and now community building investing. St. Louis is my home, and St. Louis is my passion. On behalf of the members of the Stimulus Advisory Board or the SAB, you'll hear that SAB a lot tonight. I want to say that we all look forward to serving this community and this administration in the best way that we can. We will not be perfect, but we will do our level best. Toward that end, let me take just a minute to talk about the purpose of the SAB. To be clear, and as the mayor has already indicated, the Stimulus Advisory Board does not make decisions about how this $500 million gets spent. There is a process, and as the mayor said, process is policy, and that is set in place already. However, she's explained the money will need to be appropriated through the Board of Estimate and Apportionment and the Board of Aldermen. However, our role is to ensure that as proposals are formulated by the mayor's office for the appropriation process, the community's voice and lessons learned over the past year of extreme crises are heard loud and clear. To fulfill that mission, the SAB was divided into 3 working groups based on a member's expertise and interests. The first is the data working group. You've heard some reference to that. This group has volunteered hundreds, literally hundreds of hours, collecting, analyzing, summarizing, and making accessible to the other work groups large amounts of data from surveys, recent surveys, from earlier surveys, from regional social service agencies, from the general public input process. This data is what the SAB has relied on to help set the priorities you will hear about tonight. Next, there is the Direct Relief Working Group. That group is tasked with taking the public input and the data and working directly with the mayor's staff to make sure that the public input shapes the mayor's spending proposals. You will hear most from the Direct Relief Work Group tonight because direct relief to citizens, businesses, and institutions was the mayor's first priority, and it was the priority that emerged from the citizen input that I just described above. And the third work group is the Process and Planning Working Group, whose charge is to strategically guide and shape the work of the Stimulus Advisory Board, especially with respect to community engagement, so that we as a board are consistently in listening, analyzing, and recommending mode on behalf of getting the public's input front and center for the decision makers. The members of the 3 groups form the Volunteer Citizens of the Stimulus Advisory Board, or the SAB. The SAB will sign off on recommendations to the mayor's office as a full board. That is the purpose. What I've described just above is the purpose, the organization, and the process of the SAB, and is the process by which we get to this first draft spending proposals. You, the public, got the first draft already because it's been publicly released. The mayor got it out there as soon as almost immediately after we got it into her hands. You'll see a short presentation on it in just a moment. So to summarize, because we know that many of us, including me, are better when we hear it more than once. The document you saw and which will be discussed here tonight was developed by the Direct Relief Working Group based on data and process from our companion working groups in consultation with the mayor's staff. The priorities are based on public input and data collected in roughly the last month since the formation of the SAB. After hearing from the public tonight, the full SAB will be meeting next Saturday to make final adjustments before we officially send this recommended spending plan to the mayor as the product of the work of the Stimulus Advisory Board. And one last quick clarification. The community input process we've gone through to this point has necessarily been brief so that we can get the much needed first appropriation put together, approved, and out. We know that the needs of citizens are pressing, and we acted like they are pressing. After this, we will have another roughly $200 million to spend this year, and we will be receiving another $250 million next May. This Stimulus Advisory Board will be designing and helping the mayor's office to implement an even more extensive and thorough community engagement process for the next rounds of funding. We will take what we learn from this process and make improvements and make adjustments to get better input and to get better output. This money belongs to the city, to the citizens. And this initial appropriation we are considering tonight is, as the mayor said, just the beginning. So please stay constructively engaged. And we look forward to hearing from you all tonight. Thank you. And with that, I'll hand it back to our wonderful moderator, Reverend Higgins.
Thank y'all so much. And now we're going to have a presentation of the current recommendations by the Direct Aid Committee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Waymeyer, and it is my great honor to be with you this evening. Bear with me just a second. Okay. So tonight we will present the recommendations on the expenditure of the first 68 million in American Rescue Plan Act for the state and local fiscal recovery funds. It has been an honor to work with a team so dedicated to leveraging funding to make maximum transformational impact. Next slide. So just a little overview of what we will talk about. Number one, sources of revenue, defining direct relief, sharing the data sources and community input. We will talk about the 6 priorities that were identified, including critical health needs, housing assistance, support for unhoused neighbors, economic relief, youth jobs and programming, expanding internet access, and then finally administrative costs and planning for long-term resiliency. Next slide. So just to give you a list of the sources of revenue that make up the 68 million, we have 53.6 million from state and local fiscal recovery funds. We have 12.4 million in emergency rental assistance program. And then we have 2 million in E-rate. Next slide. So to help us level set, as a group, we first collectively defined what direct relief is as it pertained to our work. We thought it was important that we had a shared understanding. And so this is where we landed in our definition of direct relief. So these are activities that deliver rapid assistance to stabilize households and businesses most in need, system level interventions to be implemented with subsequent rounds of funding to create a more resilient STL in the face of future crises. And then considerations for inclusion of activities under direct relief included, we wanted to focus on populations that are historically underserved by previous or current relief programs during the COVID-19 pandemic, funds that need to be spent on a short time frame, so emergency rental assistance, for example, activities that serve multiple purposes, so trying to get the most bang for all of our dollars spent, and then select pilot activities with the potential to set up longer term programs, and existing capacity within the city government and or via community partners for program administration, and finally, community input and other data reflecting community needs. Next slide. So it's important to understand, and this, Sandra did a great job of pointing this out, that each priority is driven by community input from multiple data sources. So those data sources include your voice from the direct relief community needs assessment surveys. It also included community requests for services through 211 requests, mutual aid requests, and CARES Act requests. And then finally, the St. Louis City equity indicators. So lots of data went into identifying each of these priorities. Next slide. So based on the first priority, based on the data, our first priority is meeting critical health needs. And just a few statistics. We know that those already living in the margins have most severely been impacted by the public health crisis and the resulting economic fallout. We know that 4 in 10 adults reported symptoms of anxiety and depression during the pandemic. 28% of city residents have completed vaccinations, which shows that we still have a ways to go. And rates of community violence have increased throughout the pandemic, which 2021 is already outpacing 2020 for homicide rates. Okay, so next, oh, I got it here. Okay, so the priority 1, funding recommendations. Let's go back one slide. So the Stimulus Advisory Board Relief Subcommittee recommends that money be allotted toward mobile vaccination clinics, public education, and community canvassing efforts to increase vaccination rates in low-income communities, hiring community health workers and establishing a fund for retention and recruitment of home health care workers and direct support professionals to support individuals with disabilities, behavioral health providers, and finally, evidence-based community violence intervention programs such as Cure Violence. Next slide. And so the next slide is a chart of how that money is recommended, the allocations. And so we have 500,000 going toward canvassing and community outreach, 1.75 million going to community health workers, 2.25 million going to behavioral health providers, 1.5 million going to home health care and direct support care workers, 2 million going to community violence intervention programs, 1 million going to mobile vaccination clinics, 150,000 going to vaccine education and marketing, and finally 500,000 going to contingency. So our grand total is 9.65 million on priority 1, which is meeting critical health needs. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Ed.
Thanks, Amy. Again, my name is Ed Bryant. I'm with the UMLIST and List Advisory Board. I'm going to be talking about 2 of our priorities. Priority 2, which is around funding for housing and rental assistance, and funding, and priority 3, which is support for our unhoused neighbors. One of the things that we have been informed by the data around this area of housing and utility assistance, that we know that St. Louisans are having a difficult time to achieve and maintain housing stability. And also, city residents have already identified housing as their single biggest budgetary cost, and housing remains a massive barrier to economic security. And then third, the city has had some challenges to disperse funds in a timely and accessible manner. So our recommendation from the Direct Relief Committee is that stimulus funds should be dispersed and centralized in a trusted partner, and an online application portal will be created, and the city invest in door-to-door outreach and case management. Second, that a fund be created to assist those at risk of losing their homes due to being behind in property taxes. Third, expanding legal representation in eviction proceedings as an intervention to reduce evictions and homelessness. And fourth, providing housing and utility assistance. Next slide. So here you see the line items and the recommendations of categories that we're recommending, that $12.4 million, that those are ERAP funds. Those are the funds that are part of the ARP Act, but are not part of the SLFRF funding package. $1.5 million in mortgage assistance, $150,000 in real property tax assistance, $250,000 in accounting and legal compliance, $250 in online for the online portal, $250 for the call hotline, $1.5 million for public benefits navigators and case managers, $250,000 for legal assistance, $300,000 for mediation, and $1 million for in the contingency category, which brings us to a grand total of $17.89 million. Next slide. The third funding priority is aid for our unhoused residents and neighbors. So one of the things that we saw, that as soon as the eviction moratoriums end, thousands of St. Louis residents became homeless. In July of 2020, 1,260 individuals were experiencing homelessness, and around 30% of those individuals were unsheltered on a single night. Black residents are nearly 4 times as likely to be homeless as white residents. So our recommendations are that there be an establishment of an intentional encampment for those who prefer to live outside or are not ready for shelter, for a shelter environment. The establishment of a safe haven to provide 24/7 walk-in option for those seeking shelter. Third, that there be a community outreach to assist in assessing services, case management, and wraparound services. Bridge housing to support those who are newly evicted or leaving the justice system and finding temporary housing at a hotel or motel. Rapid rehousing to provide immediate funding for rent, utilities, and case management. And finally, a permanent supportive housing for affordable housing assistance with support services to address the needs of chronically homeless individuals. Next slide. So here you see the line items that we're recommending: $2 million for intentional encampments, $1.386 million for safe haven, $1.5 million for emergency shelter, $200,000 for centralized intake, $1.25 million for wraparound services, $700,000 for case management, $250,000 for community outreach, $1 million for bridge housing, $2.5 million for rapid rehousing, and $1.5 million for permanent supportive housing, and $750,000 for contingency, bringing us to a grand total of $13,086,370 total. Now I'm going to hand it over to Megan Amia Green.
Thank you, Ed. I'm Alderwoman Megan Aaliyah Green, and I'm going to walk through the next 3 funding priorities as well as the implementation of these priorities. So the next priority we have is economic relief. We know that businesses and households in our community are still struggling to pay their bills, and with the state of Missouri blocking federal unemployment benefits, households and businesses that are suddenly losing some of these benefits are going to have some different and evolving needs. We also know that we need to support workforce development to make sure that the skills that people have match what is needed in the job market. And we also recognize that there's been a growing gap in access to early care and education programs and the expense that goes along with those programs. So the Stimulus Advisory Board Direct Relief Subcommittee is recommending that funds be directed toward small business and nonprofit grants, restaurants, venues, other hospitality sectors and businesses. We're recommending developing a technical assistance hub for minority and women-owned businesses to provide tax filing assistance, web design, legal advice, things like that. We are recommending investing in expansion of workforce development capacity to, again, make sure that workforce needs are matching the skills that workers have in our community. And we are pushing for establishing a city unemployment worker assistance program to provide a one-time $350 to $500 payment to the estimated 10,000 St. Louis City residents who are being impacted by the state of Missouri blocking federal unemployment benefits. And last, we are recommending expanding capacity for early childhood and early care and education in our city. Next slide. So you can see on this slide the breakdown in each one of those funding categories, from the city worker unemployment assistance program coming in at around $5 million and going down from there to a total of $14.5 million that we are advocating to go toward economic relief in this funding package. Next slide. The next priority is youth programming. We know that about 42% of youth in our city live in households who are below the poverty level, and only about a third of our city's youth right now participate in out-of-school programming. And so we need to figure out ways to engage our youth in other ways. And some of the ways that we can do that is through summer youth programs, through jobs programs that expand beyond the summer, and through expanding opportunities that exist at our rec centers. So we are wanting to expand partnership with St. Louis Public Schools, and the Stimulus Advisory Board Direct Relief Subcommittee is recommending that we fund summer youth programs and summer youth jobs, that we expand youth programming that is at our recreation centers and create programming that is focused on variety of different areas to entice more kids to want to participate in that programming. We're advocating and adding social workers to our rec centers to address some of the ongoing behavioral and mental health needs of young people that we've only seen get worse throughout the pandemic. We want to make rec centers access points for vaccination efforts, especially as more of our youth are eligible to receive the vaccine. And we want to support the Gateway Go program, which provides free public transit to youth so that they can access recreational activities and youth jobs. Next slide. So we're advocating a total of $4.6 million be allocated to all of these different areas to support youth programming, ranging from $1.5 million for summer youth jobs to $250,000 to be able to support the Gateway Go program, and a little over $400,000 to be able to reinstitute the midnight basketball leagues that used to exist in the city of St. Louis. Next slide. And the next funding priority is expanding internet access. We know that a lot of folks in our community were caught really off guard at the beginning of the pandemic when they were sent home from school or sent home from work and didn't necessarily have access to connect with school online, connect with work online, or even connect with vital information about the pandemic if they didn't have access to the internet. And so the Stimulus Advisory Board Direct Relief Subcommittee recommends dedicating resources first to mapping the digital divide better so that we can understand how these disparities exist in our city and where they exist, and then employing a two-pronged approach to addressing this divide. We want to work in partnership with St. Louis Public Libraries to expand access to devices such as phones, tablets, routers, other devices such as that, and establish and expand public access or public Wi-Fi access points in our parks across the city, and make sure that we are giving priority installation to parks and community centers that are located in areas in our city that have that are in that digital divide and that have less access to the internet. Next slide. And so through the E-rate program and through that partnership with St. Louis Public Libraries, we are recommending a total of $6 million be allocated through this round of funding to expand internet access. Next slide. And then the last piece of this, we recognize that in order for any of these priorities to be successfully implemented, that there must also be funds that are dedicated to implementation, oversight, and planning for long-term resiliency. We know that a lot of the programs that we are funding today are small scale in proportion to what the need is in our community, and that if the long-term goal is to make sure that we can weather other catastrophes like another pandemic in the future, that we must be building out systems level changes in the future. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that we are building out the staff capacity in city government to oversee, implement, and manage the programs around these 6 priorities, and that we have the funds needed to be able to do the compliance, the monitoring, the auditing, and the administration of these programs. And then last, be able to invest in that long-term planning for the next round of funding so that we do those systems level changes when it comes to building out critical infrastructure like childcare, like public transit, like affordable housing, some of those bigger picture funding needs that exist beyond the $68 million that we have available today. Next slide. So for that, we are advocating a total of $2.3 million to be allocated to build out that staff capacity to make sure that we can plan for using this next round of stimulus money wisely, and can also oversee and implement this round of stimulus money effectively. Next slide. And then just a summary of everything that we've talked about today, 1 through 6, plus our administrative costs. We have a total of $68 million that we are allocating today through the 3 funding sources that we outlined at the beginning: critical health needs, housing assistance, support for our unhoused neighbors, economic relief, youth jobs, and expanding internet access. And that's it from the Direct Relief Subcommittee. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you all for hanging in and listening to this comprehensive list of recommendations. Now it's time for us to head into the segment of public testimony. Now, we have had a very enthusiastic response to our call for testimony today. So we have a huge thank you that goes out to everyone who registered. Speakers will be called on to speak in the order in which they registered. It just seems to be the easiest and most fair way to do it. I know there's a million ways to do it, so please bear with us as we figured out this process. Now, we do have more speakers than we have time for, and so we've extended the end of tonight's testimony period from 7:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. to try to get as many people in as we can. If you've registered to testify, but we don't get to your turn before 8 o'clock, we are going to email you with an address to please send your testimony in written form. A few important announcements before we start calling roll. Tonight is a listening session. You may have come with questions, and we do want to hear those, but we want you to know that we are trying to listen only this evening, as the mayor said when she introduced us. So we are not necessarily going to banter and engage. So please know that even though you have 3 minutes, you don't need to take it all. If you're coming with similar questions and comments as you've heard, or maybe even typed in the chat a little bit, don't hesitate to shift your comment to focus on something else that you wanted to say. We want to be courteous of people who have similar ideas and try to diversify the things that we're bringing tonight, because there's not much time to get everyone in. We're so thankful for your enthusiastic replies to this request for comment that we want to give everyone tonight a chance to give their opinions. So we're accepting comments via a digital audience polling system called Mentimeter. The best way to access that is to point any browser on any device to the website menti.com. That's MENTI.com. Once there, you'll enter the code 34749002, and that will give you access to comment. These pieces of information I just said are also going to appear in the chat. Before I continue, I want to remind you that if you need to see closed captions, please click or tap on the closed caption icon in the bottom of your Zoom window and select whether you want to see subtitles or the full transcript. And if you need to see our sign language interpreters, remember that when you locate their view boxes, click on those 3 little buttons and click pin. But there are 2 interpreters who will be taking turns, so please make sure you can pin them both. Now, we will go in the order of the manner that people have registered. You have 3 minutes to speak. And this is the same testimonial practice that's been used by the Board of Alders and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. To be fair to everyone, we will have to mute folks who go over time. So go ahead and forgive us on the front end. Maybe that's why they had a reverend be the moderator. You can get mad at me. It's kind of my job for people to get upset. So please feel free to hear us when we say, hey, boo, you got 30 seconds left, and go ahead and wind that time down before we have to mute you. If you have decided that you no longer need to testify, you can simply private chat me or our host, STLTV, and let them know your name and you don't need to testify. When I call your name, will you do us a favor? Go ahead and say your name, especially if I have mispronounced it. Please give us your name before you begin your comment. If everyone feels ready, I do too. My name is Michelle Higgins. I'm excited to be your moderator tonight, and hopefully you'll only hear my voice come in and out to say next person. Let's get started, everybody. Lindsay Noblat is the first to testify.
Hey, everybody. I can't believe I'm first. This is so awesome. First of all, this group of people is so impressive. I'm just like, I feel so blessed to be here. My name is Lindsay Noblat. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Jones the Board of Aldermen for the opportunity to speak, and the Stimulus Advisory Board for the thoughtful draft plan. I am a mother of a 2-year-old, a city resident in the 8th Ward, and a small business owner in the 7th Ward, and I am the Special Projects Director at Southside Early Childhood Center located in South City. We are the oldest childcare center west of the Mississippi, opening in 1886. We are a federal Head Start and early Head Start agency, and we serve children 6 weeks to 5 years old. Our population is largely composed of families of color, immigrants, and refugees. I am personally and professionally tied to caring for our biggest asset in St. Louis City, our babies. And man, do I really love moms and babies. So this year has been really tough on everyone, but I would say it has been especially tough on moms. We have been pushed to exhaustion trying to juggle life and work and virtual learning, but still it feels like our country and state and city does not warrant our needs as a priority. We are the first to wake up and the last to bed. It genuinely feels like no one cares about our well-being, our place at work, and that our babies' tiny, perfect brains are building more in the first 3 years than any other time in their little perfect lives. Imagine if we crafted a budget for moms. What would it look like? Right now, we have a chance in St. Louis City to put the lives of our babies and moms first with funds from the direct relief. And we can start by funding childcare so moms can work, can live out their professional dreams, or just have a break. This is why today we are asking the SAB to fund $8 million instead of $2 million for childcare in this first round of direct relief. Recently, Childcare Aware Missouri estimated that St. Louis City had 182 open childcare programs, which is only 78.4% of where we were in September 2019. In May 2020, St. Louis City had childcare program capacity for 9,926 children, which is only 81.6% of the available in September 2019.
Lindsay, you've got 30 seconds.
Oh my God. Okay, childcare is critical infrastructure and should be treated accordingly. The majority of childcare facilities in St. Louis are run and operated by women of color, the backbone of our city's care economy, working on poverty wages. Without them, many families and single moms opt out of the labor force completely. The Stimulus Direct Relief Fund gives the city of St. Louis the opportunity to support our moms to get back to work and to make it through this very difficult time. $8 million indirectly will assist centers and homes to continue to keep their doors open and the ability to retain and hire high quality staff. $8 million would allow facilities to make payroll for one more quarter. For many childcare providers, the second round of PPP is running out. Again, childcare is critical infrastructure. Please fund childcare. The health and well-being of our tiniest citizens depends on it. Done.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lindsay. As a mom, I feel you, girl. Lisa has agreed to email her testimony, so let's make sure that she gets info. Next up will be Valerie Gary. Valerie, are you with us? Going once. All right, we're going to move on to John Gall. Are you with us, John? Okay, well, some of y'all that registered.
John will be ready in just a minute.
John will be ready in just a minute. All right. See, now Lindsay's like, I could have taken my extra 30.
John, you're on the call.
Hey, John, if you're ready, you can go ahead and speak.
I'm trying. Thank you. I was redirected, so Took me about a minute to get reconnected here. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the mayor and her staff as well as SAB for pulling this together this evening. As most of you on the panel probably saw a couple of questions I put out there with regards to priority number one. I think it's wonderful that you've thought hard and long about the issues of community health workers. I think they're instrumental in dealing with a lot of the issues that came up since COVID, but certainly prior to COVID as well. One of the things that I was wondering is, especially in light of some of the programs that are out there, like in Denver, the STARS program or the CAHOOTS program in Eugene, Oregon, places like that. They're crisis intervention teams that basically create a buffer between those who are in mental health crises on the street versus sending police or firefighters in as first responders to those incidents. It would be interesting to see if you all have considered implementing a program like Cahoots. If my understanding is correct, it is about a $3 million a year program. Heard and read a lot about the different programs through out the different cities in the United States where this type of intervention has become successful and shown positive results. So when a call comes into 911, fortunately, in some of these areas, there's 3 areas to direct it to, either police, fire, or to the crisis intervention team for mental and behavioral health issues. And so with that, I would really like to see at least that to be seriously considered. And I do appreciate the opportunity for sharing my thoughts here. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joan Lipkin, you're next.
Joan, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
How's that? Good?
There we go.
Hi, I'm Joan Lipkin. I'm a theater maker and educator. I'm also a specialist in community-based work and civic engagement. I want to thank Mayor Jones and the advisory board for the enormous efforts and also for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about the quality and the importance of the role of the arts in our quality of life and recovery efforts. Much has been written about the arts as an economic driver, or the fact that artists, when employed, also put money back into the economy. So I'm going to speak instead tonight about the importance of how we can contribute and participate in this essential and necessary reset to a more equitable St. Louis. I use the term arts broadly to include visual artists, writers, performers, dancers, musicians, videographers, photographers, filmmakers, composers, directors, and artist educators, those who excel at using any number of these mediums to provide information, but also engage with the public around self-expression. When we think about some of the critical areas that have been identified by the American Rescue Plan, along with our fellow citizens and the mayor's office, to identify needs like vaccinations, transportation, community violence intervention, programming for youth, for example. Let's also make sure that we include outreach to often underserved populations in our community, including people with disabilities, seniors, LGBTQ+, and immigrants. Most of us consider the arts in more traditional ways. I want to suggest that we can, and many of us have experience in helping plan to provide much needed support. We can create graphics, music, video, and dance to promote vaccines. We can offer conversation circles and art making opportunities to mitigate violence in our community. We can design and oversee summer youth programming and beyond. And yes, we can also put on conferences and concerts and plays. But what I really want to say is that we can partner with you to problem solve and to change the quality of life through the arts. Most significantly, through our shared imaginations, we can provide much needed hope for a more equitable St. Louis. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm very, very grateful for all of your work. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joan. Farrakhan, you're up next. You ready?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Want to make sure that the sound is working. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Mayor Jones and members of this advisory board. As this is a very, very important engagement process. As a result of this, recommendations or any insights from this process, it will greatly impact generations of St. Louisians to come. I'd like to ask this advisory board to prioritize an increase in the cap of Prop NS funding for LRA-owned properties that can be nominated for stabilization, and to increase the amount or provide more funding for homeowners seeking assistance and funding of home repairs as we seek to aim and stabilize property and home assets and home value in North St. Louis. I also advocate asking for the prioritization for the support of community organizing centered around community-based development and enhancement. In addition, I also like to reinforce the already priority that this advisory board has already made of increasing youth employment and youth services allocations and resources. The Federation of Block Units, Young Voices with Action, and myself personally stand ready and able to assist whenever and wherever possible, and at your leisure. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next up is Barbara Martin. Barbara, if you're here, will you raise your hand so we can make sure you're with us? All right. Well, let's move on to Verilene Long. Please correct me if I mispronounced. Verilene, are you here? All right. Is Jordan Henry with us? Jordan?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. First and foremost, thank you guys all for putting this together. This is a beautiful campaign and grassroots from everyone who's been involved, and kind of what the framework is laying out for moving forward, kind of just having the people who are most marginalized being the ones that are receiving kind of the most relief and kind of so on and so forth. I won't hold you guys up. You guys have a lot of work, and I know there's a lot of people talking. So I just kind of want to point to somebody in Columbia, Missouri, who's doing something kind of cool. If you look at Stripes, they are kind of a student-led organization of drivers that kind of don't work with the police, but they work kind of adjunct to the police. So if a student requires, assistance getting home, whether that be they're too inebriated, whether that be they are too this, to that, they have the access to Stripes, which is a telephone text-based service. Everything is free. Everything is kind of local. And so you don't have to worry about being pulled over with the cops because you are, having fun with your friends, you took it too much. You don't have to worry about not having a way home because your boyfriend and you are getting into an argument, this, that, and the other. It kind of, allows people to get home safely, and it kind of allows people a resource to kind of move forward safely, knowing that, at any time, if they need to leave a situation, they can order something that's not an Uber that's not, you know, a taxi, that's not their boyfriend, that's not a stranger on the street who's trying to pick them up or, you know, give them help supposedly. We just have that resource for everybody in our town to know. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jordan. Tanisha Beatty, are you with us? You're next.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Well, evening. Thank you. My name is Tanisha Beatty. I am a owner, director of a childcare facility, and I am advocating for more funding to help the child care industry itself. Myself and 183 childcare owners, we are essential workers. We are essential workers. We have to make that clear. We are essential workers. We have to work so other people can work. We also have to provide a quality living, wages for our staff. We are advocating for 8 million. The reason that we're advocating for 8 million is because we want to be able to pay a substantial amount of wages. Our employment has gone down. No one wants to work because they are getting all this money from unemployment. The childcare industry has been suffering for years as far as having quality workers, because in order to get quality workers, you have to pay quality wages. If they cannot live and feed their families, they're not going to want to come in and share their knowledge with children because they are struggling and their household is not in order. I am advocating today that if we get 8 million this round, it will help us get the economy back jump-started as far as early childcare. We will be able to bring good quality childcare providers into the establishments. And we will be able to allow them to come off of unemployment, come off of food stamps, because right now we only can afford minimum wage during this time of pandemic. So some of us can barely afford that. So 2 million would only give each childcare center $10,000. That does not cover one payroll. And I'm being honest and truthful. We need a substantial increase to our situation. That is what I'm saying.
30 seconds.
But to advocate, I am here for my staff. I want them to grow and learn and get educated and be able to afford education. So I advocate for 8 million for us because we really, really need it in order to pay quality people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rashad, are you here?
I am here. I don't know if I'm on camera at all, but I am here. I don't know if my webcam's working right now, but I did dial in on Zoom. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and get started either way. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Rashad Statia. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an attorney and a mediator, and I'm the programs manager at the Conflict Resolution Center. Over the past year, I've served as the manager of our eviction prevention mediation program, working with landlords and tenants in St. Louis City to keep eviction matters out of the courts and tenants housed. Since July 2020, our team has been at every unrepresented landlord-tenant docket with Divisions 27 and 28 to mediate eviction matters. In court and out of court, we have worked with individuals struggling to navigate the complexities of the legal system, the evolving eviction moratoria, and a system of aid and support that often left people wondering who was there to help them. We have opened over 1,000 case files and have convened for nearly 600 mediations. The eviction process is incredibly complex. For the average person without the relevant legal background, navigating an eviction is time-consuming, frightening, and overwhelming. It's sometimes embarrassing. In their lifetimes, most people never have to see the inside of a courtroom, but this pandemic has brought with it a world of new challenges and fears. As tenants find themselves unemployed, homeschooling their children, and/or taking care of their loved ones, the threat of housing instability and homelessness lingers. Before a tenant has had an eviction hearing or a judgment against them, the mere filing of an action has lasting implications in form of a public record that follows a tenant from rental application to rental application, leading to denial after denial. For smaller landlords, eviction can be equally overwhelming, deeply personal and fraught, extending far beyond a tenant's unpaid rent. These landlords rent to their neighbors, their friends, or their family members. They lease out their old homes or units downstairs from their own. They have bills, taxes, and financial obligations to banks and others who depend on them. Through our role as mediators, we focus on rebuilding trust and opening lines of communication. We work to create lasting arrangements that account for future disagreements, disruptions in rent, or other communication breakdowns, and making a safe space where adversaries work together and become collaborators. We foster environments that lead to conversation and accountability for everyone involved. We've seen that discourse leads to more discourse. When people work together to do something like completing a rental assistance application, they become vested in common goals. When individuals in conflict receive holistic and responsive service, the beneficial impact spreads beyond the dispute and out into our community. Our best ambassadors are the ones who have gone through our process. In acting as emissaries for rental assistance funds, including our own, we have seen firsthand the power of translation and the need for accessible information. On their own, landlords and tenants have struggled to complete rental assistance applications or have had difficulty understanding the numerous funding streams, be it CARES, ERAP, SAFER, or the myriad of other acronyms. The transparency we have provided through mediation cuts through the confusion and provides comfort in the tumult. We've been honored to act as guides for landlords and tenants on this journey, and I thank you for your time and for the opportunity to share some of what we've learned along the way. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sorry we couldn't see each other, but I do appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Rashad. Excellently timed. I just have to add that in.
Thank you.
Gregory Anderson, are you with us? All right. Bolanle, are you with us?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Bolanle Ambunije of UNI Rise, an education and training company that solves Black American problems at school, working in the community. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and thank you for listening. I want to highlight an aspect of mental health that gets largely ignored, and that's parent education. Equipping parents with the information and tools that helps them create a home environment that supports academic success, and by extension, life success, goes a long way towards supporting a parent's mental health. Prepared parents are happier, more proactive and engaged with their children, and are less likely to abuse and otherwise endanger their children. Children of prepared parents are more likely to succeed in school and are less likely to engage in criminal activities as they get older. I'll close by saying an intelligent society invests in equipping its people to be productive parents. So investing in parent education will make a positive impact on generations, because when raising our children, we're also raising our grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bolanle. Lisa, are you ready to speak? Lisa,
yes.
All right.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Jones, and congratulations for this opportunity to speak. And thank you to the Stimulus Advisory Board. My name is Lisa Shear. I'm a mother first to 3 children, and I'm a child care director in the 2nd Ward in Baden, Missouri. Our child care center, Baden Christian Child Care, has been in operation for 22 years. We serve children ages 6 weeks to 12 years old. Our population is largely made up of families of color, families that are disproportionately underserved and often overlooked in our area. A lot of times it feels very lonely in Baden. Again, we're overlooked a lot. And even before the pandemic, there were lots of high needs in that area, and it just seems to have exploded after the pandemic. And a lot of times it feels like that we as childcare providers are their only lifeline. I know I only have 3 minutes, but I wanted to share a quick story of just one story I could tell you about almost all my families. I have a single mother that attends my childcare center. She has 5 children, including a grandchild that lives with her that she helps raise. This particular mom does not have transportation, like many of my families. And because of that, she has to get a bus to get to work. During the pandemic, her children were at home. She had to stay home to help with the children. She lost her job. We live in an area that's considered a food desert. She wasn't able to get to food. She had no access to PPE, no internet access for her children. You could just see where this is going, a snowball of effects. And
Lisa, you have 30 seconds.
The point is that a lot of times we are the only lifeline that they have. And for childcare providers right now, we're closing. And if childcare continue to close, then who will be that lifeline and who will help them with that? Right now, we need direct relief in order to stay afloat. And we're asking for $8 million that will help just get us through the next several months. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Napoleon, are you with us? Stephanie Henton, are you with us? Vanessa Hopkins, if you're ready. All right. Julia Allen.
I'm here. I'm here.
All right.
Okay. I want to, first of all, thank Mayor Jones and the board for listening to what I have to say. Mayor Jones, I'm that little old lady with the cane that seems to be stalking you at every meeting that you go to. I also am, what I'd like to advocate for is $2 million to be included in the human services budget. And the reason that I'm asking for that is because of the aging population. A lot of the money is going to a lot of different things for childcare and things like that. However, the aging population is also part of that. And a lot of times the aging population has the hardest time to access services. You already have one agency with the city of St. Louis that does excellent work. They're well organized. They know how to do outreach to people, and that's the St. Louis Area Agency on Aging. And if many of you don't know, their funding has been cut by the state. They provide services to older adults, 60 and older, and the disabled. And they encompass all the things that you have on your list: the housing, the rental assistance, the mortgage assistance, and food. Their food program, their home delivered meal program has been cut by the state. The other thing that I want to advocate for is for when you're allocating this money, you have to remember those people who are older adults who are on a fixed income. They may receive Social Security, but sometimes their Social Security makes them over income for a lot of these programs that a lot of people are advocating for. And I found in my work of 20 plus years working with the aging, a lot of the middle class or the people just above poverty, I'll put it that way, they need the same services and the same help that everybody else does. I've done this kind of work on the state level and locally. I've been out, I'm an advocate for older adults. I've seen all kinds of situations, the homelessness, the non-able to be, pay your utility bills when it's 90 degrees outside and
Mama
the
Julia,
utility.
you got 30 seconds.
I am done. Thank you.
Thank you. Vanessa Hopkins.
She may need to unmute herself.
Vanessa, can you unmute?
I just did. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all for your time. I just had some concerns. I'm an 18-year educator, recently moved back to St. Louis after some travels in different places. But I had some concerns about the barriers that may be presented when trying to support quality education in St. Louis, and that being certification and making sure we get people certified as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, and how we engage the local universities and the Department of Education in that work, as well as for those people who are creating their own educational services or programs, how they submit proposals to make sure those proposals are being heard by the city as well as by the district, like making sure that's streamlined and those ideas aren't being lost in the fray.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Lisa Marie, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, go on.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Legrone, and I'm the coordinator for the Project High Key, a violence prevention program in the 22nd Ward. I'd like to thank Mayor Jones for the opportunity for citizen input on how the stimulus money will be spent. The Organization for Black Struggle convened a meeting of the 22nd Ward residents to get their idea of what's needed where we live and work. Residents want to end police chases. They put innocent residents at risk, and in most cases, there could be alternative ways to apprehend so-called suspects. Police need to focus on the violent crimes and not the less violent crimes, like traffic violations. We need community-based programs that could train youth in rehabbing some of the hundreds of vacant properties in the 22nd Ward. We need programs like Youth Build that have been successful in other neighborhoods. Slate needs to be more active in the community outreach. They need to start or reactivate programs like the Campus Road reentry and mentoring programs. I would like to see all of the rec centers open up with longer hours. We can open up the Bayer YMCA to non-member residents of the 22nd Ward and extend these hours and programs. We need accessible mental services due to the violence and trauma faced by the residents. There is general concern about city services like trash pickup and alley cleanup in the 22nd Ward. The Housing Authority needs to be accountable for the inhumane conditions people are living in. To sum up, we want a safe and clean place for residents to congregate, socialize, play, learn, and dream. I'd like to thank you all.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Next is Christine Michelle. You with us? All right, is Nicole Nelson here? Nicole?
Hello, how you doing? We're here.
All right.
Come on. Come on. Hello, I'm here. Go ahead.
Yes, so my name is Nicole Nelson. I'm speaking on behalf of Tag Poetry as well as from the Heart of Ministries. My business partner is here with me as well too. Her name is Chastity Smith. And what I wanted to bring to the attention on tonight was the fact that I know that it was proposed earlier for a total amount of 1.5 million for emergency shelter, as well as immediate emergency services for concerning the unhoused. But I really wanted to touch and address on the fact that we're out here in these streets every day, and the need has grown drastically since last summer. What are we doing specifically to make sure that those individuals that have mental health issues, that they have access to their meds and are not missing those meds due to the fact that they cannot have consistent housing, as well as what is being said or done for the unhoused that necessarily may have jobs but don't have access to housing, that we can provide them with programs for immediate trade opportunities and things of that matter. And I'm going to share the rest of my time with my partner.
Hello, this is Chastity Smith. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Mayor Jones, for having us. My concern is that meeting their needs on the streets and going out helping them, how can we get better or easier literacy to understand to get certification to become an emergency shelter for the unhoused, and that will increase the number of people we can pull in off the street and provide them long-term with resources that can help them become productive citizens in society again, whether that be rehabilitation, trade schools, job readiness, credit repair, and things like that. It's one thing to feed them and clothe them and house them, but we need to look at transitional programs, more of them, that transition them into longevity success. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. Velta Smith. Is Emma Crocker with us?
Hi, I'm here. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Advisory Board, and fellow St. Louisans. My name is Emma Crocker. I have a doctorate in nursing practice focused in population health from the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and I work as a registered nurse at CHIPS Health and Wellness Center. CHIPS Health and Wellness Center is a free and charitable clinic for the uninsured and underserved, where they can access affordable health care and social services to promote the continued development of a productive, healthy community. CHIPS Health and Wellness Center has provided safety net medical services and behavioral health care to low-income, uninsured residents of the St. Louis metropolitan area since 1990 at its North Brands location. Throughout COVID, CHIPS has continued providing those medical services and supporting the many St. Louisans that lost their jobs and in turn lost their health insurance. But even under the best of conditions, the target population that CHIPS serves has little access to preventative care, mental health counseling, social services, dental care, nutrition services, public health nursing services, health education, and medications. This population also lacks coordinated and integrated case management and adequate support for chronic disease maintenance. 30 years ago, Mrs. Judy Bentley founded this nurse-managed community clinic. For decades, CHIPS Health and Wellness Center has focused its efforts on providing those essential healthcare services and coordinating community health outreach events, including COVID vaccination events, for those in the community who have often been structurally barred. Using some of the recovery funds to invest in these vital community health direct support care resources, as well as trusted, effective community outreach programs, would ensure we meet critical health needs and improve the access to quality care that all of our St. Louis community members deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. Shekinah, are you with us? Ariel Hadley, are you with us? Next would be Elton Thomas. Then Roman White. Roman, are you with us? Can you hear me? Rita Chang.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go on.
Excellent. Mayor, advisory board members, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Rita Chang, and I'm the program manager for the Immigrant Service Providers Network, ISPN. We're a coalition of over 40 agencies and individuals who are direct service providers and community advocates of immigrants across the St. Louis region. I'm here today to urge you to prioritize direct cash assistance for immigrant families in St. Louis City. To give you a sense of the landscape, over 21,000 immigrants live in just St. Louis City and over 140,000 in the bi-state metro area. Immigrants of all ethnicities are considerably more likely to work in service sector occupations, and undocumented immigrants largely work in agriculture, restaurants, and hospitality. Throughout this pandemic, crucial government aid has bypassed immigrants due to restrictions on immigration status, lack of language access, among other barriers. Undocumented immigrants comprise 1.3% of the state's workforce, but are ineligible for most governmental aid, such as food stamps, economic impact payments, and Medicaid. Being undocumented means being denied access to necessary social supports that many of us rely on during this crisis. In St. Louis, no government-sponsored funding opportunity has been aimed at addressing economic insecurity for immigrant families. 1 year ago, the ISPN, along with local funding partners, created the Immigrant Family Emergency Response Fund, a direct cash initiative aimed to provide immediate economic support of $500 to immigrant families who had been experiencing economic disruption and had been excluded from governmental relief efforts during the pandemic. The purpose is to get money directly into the hands of residents so individuals can address their own needs, affirming their own agency and dignity. To date, we've been able to serve 731 immigrant families in the region. And I bring this up to say our efforts have been necessary, but insufficient, and we need the city to prioritize direct cash assistance for immigrants. In a recent survey of almost 1,000 immigrant families in St. Louis who are excluded from current governmental aid, 97% reported experiencing economic income disruption, 98% reported difficulty paying for rent, utilities, and food, and 83% reported not receiving cash assistance valued of $500 or more this year. Throughout the operation of this initiative, 1 year later, a pattern that has emerged is an ongoing need for additional cash assistance and available relief regardless of immigration status.
Rita, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. Cities such as Seattle, Chicago, and New York have been aware of this gap in service and have worked with local nonprofits to disperse funds directly to immigrants. St. Louis City needs to use these funds to affirm the dignity and agency of all by making direct cash assistance accessible for immigrants. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go back to Velta Smith. Velta Smith, are you with us?
Delta, if you're talking to us, we can't hear you. So if you can unmute, if you're there.
Okay. Oh, and thanks, David. All right. Let's go on to Barbara. Okay, Barbara is having a problem with the mic, so let's make sure she's on the list of people who receive emails to get information. Anthony is next. Is Anthony with us? D'Agostino.
That's Anthony D'Agostino.
D'Agostino, thank you.
Anthony left. He left us a comment.
Okay, thank you so much. Is Kimberly Harley with us? Then next would be Danielle Jordan. Brandy Palmer. All right, Zachary White. Alicia Williams. Next would be David Alter. Tracy TP It's how they're registered. Then Loretta Ford. Sherry Cole. Rhonda Jones. Erica West. Jabron Jones.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I want to thank everyone for at least letting me come to testify. I'm the executive director of a company called, a nonprofit called HOSCO, which also runs the North Sarah Food Hub. Much of our work has to do with distributing food to those in need, mostly seniors, but also single mothers, families, and homeless. And so I didn't see anywhere in the proposal where it specifically outlined food access, but our organization is focusing on entrepreneurship and food access. So most of our work tends to center around training individuals and teaching them how to produce food products that can be sold in the marketplace to generate income for their families. And we also distribute meals throughout the North City, North County, South City, South County, Fenton, Baldwin areas on behalf of 211, St. Louis Housing Authority, St. Louis Public Schools. And we've created a system of not only producing and distributing the food, but also providing entrepreneurship training for that economic empowerment and food access. And so we support over 20 different agencies. So in essence, we're serving as disaster relief for tens of thousands of residents. And our work alone accounts for about $1.6 million of an annual budget. This is not the work that we originally set up to do, but because of COVID, all of our work has centered around providing food specifically for COVID. And so I think, you know, with that being our annual budget, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of food, but I would imagine that it would need to be much higher. We handle not only the growing of the food, the production of the meals, and also the distribution of food. So we don't actually serve as a food pantry. Our work is unique in itself because we actually make the meals from scratch, package the meals, and distribute the meals ourselves. And we work with local residents to help distribute the meals as well. And we provide jobs. Right now, we're supporting over 26 individuals just to do this type of work. So I'd like to see a specific effort that just that focuses also on the food access, making sure that we're not just providing funds to food pantries. A lot of times the money that goes to the food pantries and the food that comes from the food pantries help to sometimes exacerbate the problems of health of individuals that are living in the community. So if they have diabetes, high blood pressure, and things like that, it doesn't make sense to be providing them foods that are rich, like high in sodium, canned foods and things like that. So yeah, so I would say I don't know if the food was wrapped in some other type of services, but I'd like to see.
We've reached time.
Thank you.
Thank you. James Ross, James Roos, be with us?
It rhymes with goose. Can you hear me?
Yes.
50 years ago, I graduated from Concordia Seminary here in St. Louis. And by that time, I'd made a decision that I wasn't very good at preaching, Miss Higgins, or Reverend Higgins. And I was going to be a rent man, essentially. It started with something called Neighborhood Enterprises. That organization repaired and managed lower cost rental housing. In 1990, we created another organization called Sanctuary in, not from, Sanctuary Inn, The Ordinary, a not-for-profit that owned rental housing. In 2018, those two entities were sold or given to other individuals. In the last 3 years, we have revived Sanctuary, and I emphasize the word in, The Ordinary. I'd like the SAB to look particularly at the website that we created this year, SITO housing.org. That's the abbreviation, SITO housing.org. I've sent letters to Noel Pfeffer. Mayor Jones is Director of Economic Development. I've gone to the mayor's office with literature. I know Megan Green, Dara Eskridge. I think I've been out to your organization sometime in the past 2 years. What we do is repair and retain lower cost rental housing so that more units are available at less than 50% to people at less than 50% of the area median income. And some of those units are available particularly to organizations providing social service. My appeal is really not for this level of emergency services. My appeal is to what I think you call the Process and Planning Working Group. This is long-term planning. This year, our organization, just this year, 2021, we've raised $268,000 in donations or interest-free loans from private individuals. And we're doing 2 buildings as a model project. So all this is available to you at the SITO housing.org website. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Velma Bailey, you're next.
Good evening. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present before you. Thank you, Mayor Jones and the members of this esteemed committee. I am here to talk to you about investing in the youth infrastructure in the city of St. Louis. In 2011, I founded a not-for-profit that started a summer day camp in Fairground Park, and it was in response to a boy in our neighborhood getting shot and later pronounced dead getting off his school bus. Our camp has grown over the last 10 years, and it has been staffed primarily with volunteers from our community. And when we have had paid staff, they have been supported by the St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment and STL Youth Jobs. We have made a major commitment to our community. We have taken a small piece of space in Fairground Park, and we have created an oasis. Our children are able to swim every day because of the fairground pool. They are able to go from the Post-Dispatch Lake to Robertsville, out to Quiver River Park, to the Riverlands. We're out in St. Charles. Our children, as you know, live in a food desert. They suffer in zip codes with the highest incidences of the most violent crimes, and they face severe challenges when they try to leave our community to get access to resources in this region. Because of our agency, we are able to help our young people get equitable access to resources in this region. Our schedule is challenging from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4. And because our schedule challenges our youth, we're able to challenge the institutions in this region to meet the needs of these children in a very meaningful way. We're introducing our young people to careers and outdoor education that they would never get exposed to if they continued on the same track that they are in their positions or in their grades in their public schools or whatever schools they attend. We have been able to transition from training people to getting the experts, park educators, people in the federal systems to work and train our young people. I am here today to ask you to put money in this budget, not just for our organization, but for people like us who have ideas, who have dreams, who have hopes, who don't want to be silent around the thing that matters to us most, the education, the care, and the nurturing of our young people. We'd like to have money in the budget for 13 to 15-year-olds to be able to train them in some kind of efforts to be able to work back in the community. We would also like to see money to train adults to open their own facilities to help young people right in this community. A camp doesn't have to be at a recreation center or in a park. It can be in a block. It can be in someone's yard. Our kids need access to food. They need to be safe. Our kids want to live and make significant contributions to this world. And all they need is a little support from the adults in this community and the funding that's coming here to be able to provide development of the youth infrastructure.
Thank you so much. Stephanie Herbers, are you with us? Please correct my pronunciation.
Yes, I'm here and you got it great. So thank you, Mayor Jones and members of the advisory board for this opportunity. My name is Stephanie Herbers. I use she, her pronouns. I'm proud to call St. Louis City home for 19 years. I currently live in the 8th Ward and I also work in the city with the St. Louis City Senior Fund. Overall, I agree with the recommendations for direct relief assistance and appreciate the mention of older adults in your draft document and examples of resources that are relevant for all ages. Tonight, I am asking to make sure that a portion of stimulus funds specifically supports older adults in our city. This support could include making sure that whenever possible, direct relief assistance is applicable to residents living on fixed income, such as Social Security. Many of our neighbors have experienced financial hardship due to COVID-19, but have not necessarily experienced a loss in income. And sometimes it's been unclear whether, what COVID-related support they can receive, particularly related to rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. Workforce efforts ensuring engagement of older adults is important, particularly those who may have lost or had to step back from jobs and are struggling now to find employment, including city residents engaged in CSEP programs like the ones hosted by MERS Goodwill. In addition to childcare, making sure caregiver support includes support for working caregivers of adults who need caregiver respite, adult daycare, home health and homemaker chore services and other resources. We need to work together on systems changes that increases pay and support for direct care workers, as well as funding to support individuals and families who need assistance. In regard to internet access and equipment, just an addition for your recommendations to consider would be maintaining and expanding support for internet access and technology equipment in subsidized apartment communities, including the Wi-Fi program the St. Louis Housing Authority is piloting, as well as working with senior centers. Finally, engaging and supporting the Aging Provider Network in the planning process and getting resources to residents is key, starting with the city's Area Agency on Aging. As Julia Allen had mentioned, the pandemic has emphasized the need for more support for a very stressed aging network system in the city that has lacked resources it needs for years and has had significant funding cuts this past year. Despite the need for more resources, like many other organizations, this network did not stop providing services and their teams have been working tirelessly to serve city residents.
Yes, 30 seconds.
It's great. It's often assumed that older Americans Act dollars, Medicare and Social Security are sufficient safety net to support older adults, but these programs are not structured to be the sole resources for older adults, leaving many struggling to pay.
I get turn to speak.
So while Social Security does keep many older St. Louis incomes just above federal poverty level, 1 in 5 households led by city residents 65 plus live with incomes less than $15,000 per year. For Black-led households, this number increases to 1 in 3. Older adults have been significantly affected by the pandemic. Many are physically and socially isolated and struggling to meet monthly bills. We are fortunate that we are the only area in the region with a senior levy fund, but we don't have enough funds.
That's time. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. We have so many more to get to. I'm sorry. Let's move on to Julie Fox.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Julie Fox, the Executive Director of the Immigrant Home English Learning Program and the Chair of the Immigrant Service Providers Network, or ISPN, and a resident of the city. As you heard from my colleague Rita Chang, the ISPN is a network whose mission is to increase collaboration among members by providing opportunities for education and outreach to support the foreign-born and their families. There are estimated to be over 25,000 immigrants in St. Louis City. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the ISPN has worked to address the lack of language access for the immigrant population that does not speak English or has limited English proficiency. We want to see the city ensure that the population has access to the relief funds and relevant resources by providing interpretation and translation service for hotlines, online portals, benefit navigators, mediators, and any other services provided. We also want to see materials translated to the many different languages spoken by the city's immigrant community, as well as direct outreach on the assistance available to them. The ISPN has a dedicated language access committee that could provide information to the city on best practices that would benefit the immigrant community. Additionally, the ISPN has found that there is an overwhelming need for direct cash assistance to foreign-born individuals and families who have not had access to the state and federal assistance programs provided during the pandemic. The need for immediate financial solidarity for this population must come from trusted community partners in order for individuals and families to feel safe accessing the aid provided. We have found in our research that the distribution of cash assistance from immigrant serving organizations has not only worked regionally, as seen through the ISPN's Immigrant Family Emergency Relief Fund, which Rita Chang spoke about, but also nationally as well through various state and city initiatives. The Immigrant Service Providers Network is a resource for the city to understand the specific needs of the immigrant population. We encourage you to consider how our service providers and the network itself could be of assistance to assure the immigrant community that the city is working with trusted community partners to access relief fund and resources. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Rhonda Jackson. All right. Is Gary Newcomer?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So thank you everyone involved in hosting the hearing today and providing a forum for public comments. I just think it's really important. My name is Gary Newcomer and I'm with the Community Builders Network of Metro St. Louis. CBN is a coalition of 80 community building organizations in the St. Louis region. We exist to support and build bridges among St. Louis communities and then also the people who serve them. So my public comments today are a summary of what our network has told us about the American Rescue Plan Act and the priorities that our members have been hearing in the communities that they serve. I'm going to share those 4 priorities and then quickly mention 2 initial pieces that we saw missing in this first distribution of our ARPA funding. So the 4 priorities that our members have lifted up are 1, invest in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund without replacing local funding sources. 2, support neighborhood planning and the implementation of community-led plans. 3, elevate solutions for preventing vacant buildings and properties with an emphasis on keeping people in their homes. And 4, building lasting supports for both small businesses and commercial corridors in our city. So we're really heartened to see the support for so many of these priorities, especially not replacing the local Affordable Housing Trust Fund commitments from the use tax, but adding to those with federal funds. That being said, we also want to acknowledge that there remain opportunities for each of these priorities to be funded further in the future. And 2 examples of what we saw missing included funds for home repair and also funds for community-led planning or implementation of community-led plans. So CBN members are still working together to refine potential solutions and form partnerships as we listen to community priorities. And we're going to be excited to share those solutions and recommendations as we identify them, because we know this is only the first round or first distribution of ARPA funding in a much longer process. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you. George Stair, are you with us?
I am. I'm just an old retired guy, and but it seems to me that in the short term, we have to avoid a big increase in homeless people. In the longer term, well, I would hate for all the money to be spent on short-term needs without making some long-term improvements. I hope the choices will be based on research rather than popularity of programs. Question being, what will help people the most over the long term? I think some people are held back by various barriers and will improve their situation if we let them. The barriers I'm thinking maybe are childcare, training, education, transportation, maybe counseling. in other words, investing in people more than facilities. I think if people can increase their income, issues like housing quality will be solved. People just need better ways of producing income. Anyway, I don't have any particular qualifications on this, so I hope somebody smarter than me figures it all out and the money is spent wisely.
Thank you very much. Rhonda Jones, are you with us? Rhonda, are you able to unmute? Right. Dr. Mary Crockett Smith.
Good evening. I'm here.
All right.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Mary Crockett Smith. I'm the director and owner of the Christian Academy located on 8923 Riverview. And I would like to congratulate the mayor and say hello to everyone on the Alderman board and the SBA. I'm here because I have a lot of concerns about young people, especially our early childhood areas and social emotional impact that the pandemic has had on our children. As a center that stayed open throughout the duration of the pandemic, it has been very, very hard on our children, and the differences and the disparities in their behavior. They need additional support. The CDC and the opportunities they gave us to have smaller classrooms coming in with such behavioral concerns, we really need to focus on spending more of our monies toward having more people with our younger people. The $2 million that have been allocated will not allow us to put the employment where we need it to be so that we can have this teacher staff ratio in the classrooms. We're asking for $8 million. It's 182 centers here in St. Louis City. We're asking that you reconsider the $2 million so that we can at least get 1/4 of having 2 additional employees in the classroom to reduce classroom sizes so that we can deal with the high behavioral rate and the concerns that the children are coming in from not getting what they need and what they're accustomed to. They're already coming from environments where they're living in at-risk environments. We're asking that the SAB really consider and think about maybe looking at the situation as another PPP opportunity to increase the opportunity for us to hire and give a stable income. We are not capable of giving a decent salary. Our teachers are on food stamp. Our teachers are in a situation where they have to go and get support and assistance. They're already emotionally dealing with a lot. And we're asking that you reconsider this to look at it more of an opportunity for us to hire and get what we need into the classroom. We need to stay open for longer hours. We have to close at 6. I'm used to being open to 12 o'clock at night. I can't get anyone to come to work. And when I do come, ask them to come to work, sometimes it's from $10 to $11 to $12 and they can't even pay their families. Please consider, please think about what we're doing. We are the unsung heroes. We keep the economy going and our children need safe, professional places to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Crockett Smith. Adam Pearson, you with us?
Good evening, everyone. How are you? I guess you can't respond to me. I'll go ahead and get started. I'll be quick. Thank you so much for the work you're doing in the community. My name is Adam Cicero Pearson, and I use the he, his pronouns. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Peter and Paul Community Services, where we walk with people facing homelessness on their path to stable living. I think that the $13 million earmarked for the assistance for the unhoused is a great start. However, I strongly recommend that we expand that to a minimum of $25 million, with the difference being split between additional permanent supportive housing and emergency shelter development. The reason is that permanent supportive housing is the most effective evidence-based intervention for homelessness, especially considering that emergency shelter can often be time limited. But emergency shelters do have their benefits, however. with supportive staffing that brings people inside, provides them with food and resources, and serves as a transition point, we can meet a lot of immediate basic needs with dignity. Secondly, this might be a little bit premature, but I would also recommend that there be some guidelines that expand the funding for capital expenditures for programming and not just the programming itself. Spaces that allow for social distancing and privacy should be the baseline moving forward, especially with all the considerations with the pandemic. And retrofitting facilities to meet this need will take some funding. So that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Next is Brenda Mangrum.
Hi, my name is Brenda Mangrum. I'm with Twin Ministries, Inc. First of all, I would like to thank the mayor and the Stimulus Advisory Board for having this forum where we could actually express some concerns. I would like to thank everybody that shared. They shared a lot of information. I just wanted to piggyback on a couple of things that I've heard. The need for support with our youth and the violence in our community, especially in the Walnut Park area in the Wells and Goodfellow neighborhood. This is one of the biggest concerns I think our city has at this point. There are a lot of grassroots organizations that have great ideas and that can come together and provide the services that are needed in this area, who have boots on the ground and are able to make a difference. But most of the funding that has been allocated has not went to those grassroots organizations that are actually willing, ready, and able to do that work. I just wanted to say that if we get an opportunity to be funded where we could provide the service that's needed in the areas that is most needed in, our city would benefit a great deal from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is Bata. And please.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're on.
Okay. Thank you. And once again, congratulations to the mayor. I just wanted to talk about, I guess, priority one, and I guess it's health. And it's putting something towards the pandemic and getting out of the pandemic. St. Louis is one of the target cities, 11 target cities from Donald Trump. And so it's supposed to take an aggressive stance towards getting out of the pandemic. And there's been put forth to have a pandemic ceremony here to get out of it. It will be for the world, for the nation, and of course for this city. Next, I wanted to talk about vet businesses downtown as far as your priority 4, but having vet businesses downtown and having some type of promotion to have foot traffic downtown. Downtown St. Louis, I guess it has a history going back to Union Station with Chicago and Memphis and St. Louis. And St. Louis's downtown used to be a very popular spot, but it's a business center, a social center for any city, but then it should be, it should be built back up for St. Louis, I should say. Foot traffic during the day, during the week is very important. And it was a little funny, give the first 1,000 people $1,000. It was because recently they had an incident at night where there were only 100 people showed up downtown, but they were stepping on a police car or something like that. So trying to get 1,000 people downtown during the day, for business traffic type. Another thing for that was to stimulate. So that's a full stimulation, I guess, because it would benefit the businesses, it would benefit the people walking, and then walking would also be a healthy thing for our environment completely. I wanted to say also there are a lot of great ideas that people talked about as far as daycare and parent education. Those are very important things in the LRA. But in the daycare and parent education, when it comes to especially during the pandemic, how students haven't, I guess they were talking about people being held back because parents weren't able to educate the children, I guess, or due to the pandemic. But having some type of youth auxiliary, interactive education and tutorial academic recreation centers, but something that gives them a place to go after school where they can study and also have modern technology separate from a library. Something that will be more of a tutorial center. And also getting back to our food unions, this isn't a stimulus thing, but just mentioning St. Louis having food unions so that we won't have a food problem. Right quick, another one is in this pandemic that we need to get out of as soon as we can. The Bible verse, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, it talks about being a perdition, a fake thing, which is the pandemic of COVID-19. It's a fake. It talks about going from a fake to a real, or from a fake to a brightness. That's where we're at. I see a lot of great ideas that people could be doing.
That's
in St.
kind.
Louis.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Lovely Snowden. Lovely, you with us?
May need to unmute.
Can you unmute? No, I saw you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sure can.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Lovely Snowden, and I work for a community, I volunteer for a community-based program that's located in Hyde Park. And part of what we do is support the entrepreneurship of early child care for African-American women who have early childhood programs. And what we've done is making sure those neighborhoods in Hyde Park decide on what they want to do with the money that's allocated for early childhood. Those ladies live in the neighborhood, and we want to see that they get to decide on what they need instead of the big guys in early childhood that don't live in that neighborhood coming in that neighborhood deciding on how that money should be spent. Those ladies worked during the pandemic. They work 24 hours. They are supporting families that work in those non-traditional hours, and those hours need to be expanded. They need to provide more services because there's, before the pandemic, there was a need for more childcare programs, and to make that neighborhood in Hyde Park safe, there needs to be safe places for children. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Vanetta Clark.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Greetings to everyone. Thank you for this opportunity, Mayor Jones, and to the SAB board. You all have done a wonderful job this evening. And again, thank you. I'd like to begin by reading a quote to you all from the United States Department of Justice. It says, criminologists have largely ignored disturbed biochemical functioning as a possible cause of criminal behavior. Like alcohol or drugs, ordinary foods or the lack of them can alter the mind and unleash criminal behavior. Sugar starvation, vitamin deficiencies, lead pollution, food additives, and food allergies can convert a normal brain into a criminal brain. I was previously a resident of the Penrose community, and I've taught within the Walnut Park community for almost a decade. In 2018, I left the classroom to begin my own educational consultant business, which aided new teachers in addressing our inner city students and teaching them how to effectively apply resilient strategies. At this time, I come before you all with something more urgent in addition to teaching the resiliency practices, which is to address the critical need for nutritious food in the inner city of St. Louis. At this time, I am currently a doctoral candidate at Washington University. My research focuses on resiliency, nutrition, and most importantly, how to overcome adversity with an emphasis in epigenetics. I am asking to pilot a program specifically in the Walnut Park community that will have specific standards and objectives, that will train teachers how to work with our youth, and most importantly, provide nutritious dinners for those students who would participate. This would be an after-school program. In addition, this is also a research program. The pilot program would go forth for 1 year, and at the end of that year, we would submit all research findings and conclusions to the board for further analysis and making more informed decisions for the Walnut Park community. You can learn about me and my work for the St. Louis community at www.theresiliencebrand.com. Thank you for this time.
Thank you so much, Vanetta. Is Gerald with us? Gerald Kleba?
Yes, I am. Good evening. I would like to echo the compliments and gratitude that so many other people have already stated with regard to this advisory board and to Mayor Jones. I'm a Catholic priest in St. Louis. I've been a priest here for 55 years, and the home that my mother and dad brought me into when I was born 80 years ago is still owned by my family in Dutchtown. So we have really deep roots in St. Louis. I have spent much of my priesthood in economically stressed neighborhoods in the housing projects downtown in DeVille and in Forest Park Southeast, and have been very involved in social action programs throughout my many years. What I have done is organize a collaborative effort of 5 longtime social justice community service organizations that have a real history of caring for youth programs from pregnant mothers through getting students into college. And the 5 organizations have been in dialogue since about February, when we became aware of this big influx of money into St. Ouis, to try to plan things collaboratively, because really none of these organizations are huge. I mean, we're none of us have a budget of $1 million a year. So we thought that if we shared our wisdom and we shared our experience, some of these organizations are well over 50 years old, that we bring a lot to the table. And really, we would be doing these programs for youth whether we got any funding at all. We've done them for decades without, but we could do better programs for youth with funding, additional funding, and we could do better things if we collaborated more, which the funding would allow us to do. So if I had, besides the collaborative effort, I think, which is somewhat unique, and listening to every other excellent presentation, I haven't heard anybody say, is there some kind of a request for proposals that this board is going to issue, or is there some process that has standards and objectives and measurable goals laid out along with the budget? We're prepared to do that, but we don't know how to do that. So thank you once more, but that's what I offer that I think has a little unique aspect to it.
Thank you so much. And by way of reminder, everyone, we are going until 8 p.m., so please stick around. We have a few more people who are here to speak. And next on the list is Kennard.
Hey, Stimulus Advisory Board members, thanks for taking testimony around this. I'm lead organizer at Action St. Louis. Action St. Louis has been carrying out extensive operations around housing and evictions in both St. Louis City and County. Most recently, as of this week, the scope of this work has consisted of door knocking over 250 city residents at risk for immediate eviction with information on how to apply for rental assistance, the federal CDC moratorium declaration, how the eviction process works, and how tenants can best prepare to represent themselves pro se. Additionally, along with the coalition work of other grassroots groups within the STL Housing Defense Collective, over the last year, we have organized multiple sites of tenants around the city for better living conditions, tenant rights, and education. Through doing the hard outreach and organizing carried out throughout the last year, we have seen a dire need for allocation of rental and utility assistance funds and direct relief for individuals enduring the economic impact of the pandemic. This has been made evident by the lengthy eviction dockets with over 2,000 evictions that have been filed since the beginning of the crisis, utility shutoffs that have contributed to a secondary wave of evictions, as city residents have been forced to choose between keeping the lights, heat, or air conditioning on versus keeping a roof over their heads. It is important to make space to recognize that these evictions and displacements are disproportionately affecting majority Black and Brown communities and families across the city and will directly contribute to increasing the city's homeless population, but also increasing the housing instability among families with children as the school year comes to a close. It is key that as a city, we appropriate this assistance and these funds equitably in order to keep people in their homes, but also support those who are experiencing homelessness. It is also important to make sure that these funds are accessible and move quickly, as renters already made to navigate multiple application processes and resource streams only to be evicted due to long wait times for the current assistance. Stopping the tide of evictions, combating housing instability, supporting our unhoused neighbors, and providing these needed forms of aid to people most impacted by the economic instability presented by the pandemic is how we invest in real public safety and take care of the people in our city. Not policing, not jails, not new ways to criminalize poverty. We are in support of the Stimulus Advisory Board's proposal for allocation of funds for rental assistance, utility assistance funds, unhoused support, and direct assistance, and welcome further investments into these areas. It is our hope that the proposal is promptly accepted and approved by the St. Louis City Board of Aldermen so that these resources can reach the streets and the people that need it most in a timely manner.
Thank you, Kennard.
Thank you.
Next, we have Frank Lorberbron. Frank, are you here? Please correct my pronunciation. All right, maybe we lost Frank. Glenn Burley, you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, Glenn Burley from Equal Housing Opportunity Council. We're the area's fair housing enforcement nonprofit. And I'm going to keep myself short today. Us and our coalition partners in Sleeker are going to be issuing some recommendations on things from this, and hopefully the infrastructure package going forward as far as reinvestment in North City. But specific to tonight's document, we really want to applaud that there's been a significant amount of rental assistance that's going to be going out, but we want to really make sure that folks put a fine T on that. It's easy to access, which means minimal documentation requirements and process quickly. With the CDC's moratorium lapsing fairly soon, many of these eviction related issues are coming up very quickly. We also, we're very happy to see that there was legal services for tenants facing eviction included in that. Frankly, we think that there could be more. From what we've seen and heard from landlords, they are ready to file for evictions as soon as these moratoriums lift. So we believe that there's going to be a fairly large increase in demand for legal assistance. And we hope that this becomes a down payment on a long-term right to counsel for folks facing eviction here in the city. And lastly, we want to say we're really happy to see that there is funding for the unhoused, that it specifically includes rapid rehousing. And we really want to stress that with these evictions and stuff, a lot of these things are impacting folks that haven't used social services before in the past. And so as we're looking at funding for rapid rehousing and stuff like that, hopefully, stressing to members of the Board of Aldermen and stuff that the services need to be tailored to folks that may not be as used to accessing social service assistance as some folks may be. And that's all I got. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Tekka, you're next. Can you unmute if you're speaking? Oh, it popped up in the background.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Hey, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Mayor Jones and to the advisory board and for what you're doing tonight and what you've done in drawing up this proposal. I really like it. I think it's really strong. I'm just been overwhelmed listening to everybody who's working in the community doing amazing things. My name's Tekka Childress. I can't believe, Michelle, you said it right. Way to go. I have been a long time outreach worker to unhoused persons. And so my comments are very specific and refer to the draft on the portion of money for unhoused services. I really liked it a lot, but I wanted to offer a couple thoughts. One is there's regarding the intake system to getting into services and into shelters and into different programming. I would encourage the use of a coordinated rather than a central intake system. A coordinated system that's broader and has multiple access points is critical in really giving people a sense of being able to access something. We've had long uses of systems that have taken forever for people to get into. They can't find the door and they can never quite get in. And currently the COC and outreach workers are developing apps to allow real-time access to shelters and other services. So encourage using that by a broader group of people rather than central intake system. My second thought is I strongly support the support of people who live outside and in any kind of an intentional encampment. People need to be safe if they have to live outside. I do want to say that I think very few people want to live outside. In my experience, that's been true. And I want to think about whether we could make the encampments set of tiny houses rather than tents and structures that are less safe. We might be able to provide better than just for tent encampments, but provide other types of real housing, even if it's only temporary. Additionally, on the point of the encampment, I want to suggest that we think about having numerous encampments rather than one large one, so that people don't have to live in a huge village of people they don't know, don't feel close to, and just how dehumanizing that can be in itself when a lot of people live together in a small setup. Then my last point is on the question of the wraparound services, which I'm truly grateful that you have the 1.25 million in wraparound services. Just want to offer some specificity around that, both in terms of mental health services and in substance use disorder services. I want to.
Time, Tekka, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. That's good. I'm happy.
Your comments into an email, though. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Next, let's hear from Eugene. Eugene Hubbard.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eugene Hubbard, and I'm a SEIU Local 1 member and janitor in St. Louis for many years. My colleagues and I are essential workers who have been putting our own health at risk to keep St. Louis's buildings and its residents clean, safe, and healthy. We support this first round of direct aid to St. Louis residents using the ARP funds. I want to thank Mayor Jones for supporting the people of St. Louis with emergency rental assistance and restoring unemployment benefits that were cut by the state. In the next round of funding, I suggest that frontline essential workers be included. For the past year, while many worked from home, essential workers like us continue to go into work every day and will continue to do so. With more people getting vaccinated and the city beginning reopening, it will be janitors like myself who will be an essential part of rebuilding our city. Mayor Jones, I urge you to use ARP funds to invest in essential workers like me so that our city, our neighborhoods, and our families can thrive. The time to support essential workers is now. And I'd like to say to Mayor Jones, may God bless in your goings ins and your comings outs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, Shabibi.
Yes, good evening. I would like to say hello to everyone, all of the aldermen and people that are in positions of power. First, I would like to say I am a recovering addict and I've struggled with mental health issues all of my life. I've heard quite a few really great ideas. I've worked directly with TECA over at the homeless shelter. And yes, it is very hard getting into the homeless system, and that can frustrate a lot of the individuals that currently struggle with homelessness. I wanted to touch on domestic violence. As a domestic violence survivor, I have grown children out of those relationships. And when I sought out help for myself, because those children that I had out of those relationships became violent, there were no agencies here that could help me. I am really at a standstill where I'm frustrated because I grew up in North City and I've always been poor, but it's more beneficial now for me to stay poor because the system is set up to where it will reward me to stay home and stay homeless and stay sick. Because if I go and get a minimum wage job with a little bit of education that I have, I'll lose my housing, I'll lose my food stamp, I'll lose the little bit of monies that I do have coming in to pay my bills. And I think that a lot of the focus should be turned into incentivizing the individuals that are like me who want to live up, who want the opportunity to not have my housing or my food taken away because I want to go to work or I want to go to school. Thank you for hearing me out. Everyone enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that gave a comment tonight. Again, you can find information on how to continue your comments in the chat. I've been your grateful moderator. Please forgive me for when I had to cut you off. My name is Reverend Michelle Higgins. I'm the pastor of St. John's Church, the beloved community on the corner of North Grand Boulevard and Lee Avenue. Come see us sometime. But I'm passing it back over to our honorable co-chairs, Sandy and Wally.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks to absolutely everybody that came here and took the time to testify tonight. This was really important. And almost everybody pretty much kept to time on their own, which we really, really appreciated because Michelle did not want to have to cut people off. So thank you all for doing an amazing job of testifying. I just want to remind folks, this is the beginning of the process. This is not the end. This is the first $68 million of $500 million that we're going to be spending. Expect to hear more from us, and I really appreciate your time tonight. Sandy?
Wow. That's my response. Thank you all very, very much for the work. We're hard at it, but it is clear that the citizens of the city are hard at it also, and we really appreciate that. I know that I speak for my other SAB members when we say thank you for what you've given us tonight. And we look forward, as Wally says, to ongoing conversations. Have a good evening.
STL-TV, you want to let us know if we are off the streaming air?
So the meeting is over, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just end the entire meeting. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.